You open this, oh, now you can possibly die.
And the first thing I'm going to ask you guys, is it okay for you guys to be judged? You can say no, but you will be the one who is going to be pointed out.
If something has already attached to you, can you say that and it'll leave? And it kept peeking out and looking at me.
Hello friends, and welcome back to Paranormal Rabbit. My name is Joe, and it's nice to see you. If you're new to the channel, you're very welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Nice to see you. Today, I'm going to explore a pretty dark era in our society's past. Of course, it was a time of misunderstanding. It was a time of, in my estimation, and it's only as my opinion, a time of people being herded, or I wouldn't say herded, I'd say told one thing and believing it was the right thing, they went ahead and did it. And of course, I'm talking about Pennhurst Sanatorium. Now, Pennhurst Sanatorium was a place where they put the mentally disabled and the people who were in fact called feeble-minded. Now, Paranormal Rabbit in no way, shape, or form agrees with the opinions expressed in any part of this video regarding the history. I am disabled, just like the people in the video. It was a time of almost people were looking for something, but they would follow anybody. You'll hear the term eugenics, which is a term used by the Nazi Germans during World War II. You will hear the term retarded, which is the way we felt, or we termed mentally disabled people who were autistic, because we had no other way of saying that. So you'll hear a lot of terms like that in this video. So, with that being said, are you ready? Are you ready? Okay, let's go. You see the writing on the wall. See it now, do you see it at all? Caught in a web of lies, tangled so tight. That's like a window here in the night. Look at your reflection, the truth so thin. Can't hide behind that crooked grin. We see through you like shattered glass. These deceitful days can't forever last. Cecil, can you hear the voices calling out? Truth gonna break you, take away your doubt. No more hiding, no more disguise. Watch the truth burn. Look in your eyes. Originally established as the Eastern Pennsylvania State Institution for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic, this sprawling complex in Spring City, Pennsylvania, has a story that spans over a whole century. From its noble intentions to its controversial practices, and finally to its abandonment and alleged haunting. The Pennhurst School represents a complex chapter in our social history. Join us as we explore the corridors of this forgotten institution and uncover its secrets. The story of Pennhurst begins in the early 20th century, amid growing societal concerns about the care and treatment of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In 1903, construction began on a vast 1,400-acre site in Chester County, Pennsylvania. The campus was designed by prominent Philadelphia architect Philip H. Johnson. Known for his work on numerous public buildings and institutions, Johnson's design for Pennhurst embraced the Jacobean Revival style, characterized by its imposing red brick buildings with limestone trim. The architecture was intended to project an image of stability and permanence, reflecting the prevailing belief that institutionalization was the best solution for individuals with disabilities. The initial phase of construction included several key structures, which included the administration building, a grand structure that served as the face of the institution, several dormitories to house the residents, segregated by gender and perceived level of disability, a power plant to provide electrical and heat to the entire campus, kitchen and dining facilities, and a school building for educating younger residents. The first buildings of the Eastern State Institution for the Feeble-Minded and Epileptic were completed on a site known locally as Crab Hill. The facility is situated in Chester County near the borough of Spring City. The first group of buildings includes P, sequentially named Pennsylvania Building, Q for Quaker Hall, R, Rockwell Hall, F, Franklin Hall, G and N, Noble Hall, U for Union Hall, and V for Vincennes Hall, T for Tinicum Hall, and K and I Industrial Hall buildings. These were all completed within 2 years of the facility's opening. Numerous farm buildings were also completed in the first wave of construction, as well as a sewage plant and power plant. P building was used as an interim administration building until the actual A building is completed. Construction was completed in 1908, and the institution officially opened its doors with a total capacity for 500 residents. However, it quickly became apparent that the demand for such facilities far outweighed the available space. In its early years, Pennhurst aimed to provide a combination of care, education, and vocational training. The institution was guided by the principle of eugenics, which are now a discredited belief that the human race could be improved through selective breeding. This philosophy influenced many aspects of life at Pennhurst, from admission criteria to treatment approaches. Dr. Henry H. Goddard, prominent psychologist of the time, served as the first superintendent of Pennhurst, and under his leadership, the institution implemented intelligence testing and classification systems that would shape residents' experiences for decades to come. Despite its controversial underpinnings, Pennhurst did attract some dedicated staff who very genuinely sought to improve the lives of those residents. Early programs included basic education, physical exercise, and vocational training in areas such as farming, weaving, and woodworking. As word spread about the institution, families from across Pennsylvania and neighboring states sought to place their loved ones at Pennhurst. The growing demand led to rapid expansion, setting the stage for the challenges that would define much of Pennhurst's history. For decades following Pennhurst's opening, they saw a period of significant growth and change. By the 1930s, the original capacity of 500 had already been exceeded, and new buildings were continually being added to accommodate the growing population. During this period, the campus expanded to include 30 more additional dormitories, a hospital and medical care facility, dental facilities, a fire station and security office, expanded educational and vocational training facilities, and a theater for resident entertainment and staff training. Pennhurst was built as a world apart from the rest of society, both to keep the feeble-minded from the public, but also to end the intermixing of their genes with the population. A concern about the reproduction of the feeble-minded was also reflected in the desire to keep the sexes separated, even on the Pennhurst campus, by means of building a separate female campus. These ideas were part and parcel of the then popular idea of eugenics. In the biannual report of the legislature submitted by the Board of Trustees, Pennhurst's chief physician quotes Dr. Henry H. Goddard, a leading eugenicist, as follows, and I quote, "Every feeble-minded person is a potential criminal." The quote is used to support the argument for an expansion of the institution. The report then goes on to say, and I quote, "The general public, although more convinced today than ever before, it is a good thing to segregate the idiot or the distinct imbecile. They have not yet been convinced as to the proper treatment of the defective delinquent, which is of the brighter treatment of the defective delinquent and the more dangerous individual. It is now generally understood that feeble-mindedness is, in the great majority of instances, the direct result of hereditary transmission of mental defect. It is also known that the feeble-minded female is very likely to bear children, and that these children are almost certain to be defective in some way, permanently dependent. The feeble-minded girl is more of a menace to society than the feeble-minded boy. Statistics show that feeble-minded girls and boys marry in the ratio of 3 to 1. It would seem, therefore, that if the state is not adequately equipped to care for all of the feeble-minded girl should have institutional care in preference to the boy, since she is the greater menace. The eugenics movement was very short-lived in the United States. It was then discredited in no small part by the horrific, eugenically driven experiments and programs of the Nazi regime, and this movement was shown to be scientifically baseless and racially biased. This ideal is in no way or shape or form shared by Paranormal Rabbit or any of its affiliates. The institution's farm also grew, encompassing hundreds of acres where residents worked to produce food for the Pennhurst community. This aspect of Pennhurst life was seen as both therapeutic and economically beneficial, though modern perspective raised questions about the ethics of such labor practices, and in later years would be proven to be dark as well. By the 1960s, Pennhurst had reached its peak population, housing over 4,000 residents. The institution had essentially become a small, self-contained city with its own power plant, farms, and various support services. However, this growth came at a cost. Overcrowding became a severe problem, with some dormitories housing twice the number of residents they were designed for. The staffing levels failed to keep pace with the expanding population, leading to ratios as high as 1 staff member for every 80 residents during the night shift. The burgeoning population also led to a shift in Pennhurst's approach. The initial focus on education and potential reintegration into society gave way to a model more focused on basic care and then containment. Many residents who might have benefited from the more specialized attention instead found themselves lost in a bizarre system struggling to meet even basic needs. Despite these challenges, this period also saw some positive developments. Pennhurst became a site for training nurses and other healthcare professionals specializing in the care of individuals with disabilities. Some innovative programs were developed, including early efforts at special education and occupational therapy. These would later influence practices beyond the institution's walls. The peak years of Pennhurst also coincided with significant societal changes. The civil rights movement and growing awareness of human rights began to shine a light on the treatment of institutionalized individuals, setting the stage for the controversies and reforms that would mark Pennhurst's later years. As Pennhurst entered the late 1960s, the cracks in its foundation became impossible to ignore. Overcrowding, understaffing, and inadequate funding had created conditions that fell far short of the institution's original ideas. The turning point came in 1968 with the airing of Suffer the Little Children, a 5-part expose by NBC 10 Philadelphia. This groundbreaking documentary, reported by Bill Baldini, shocked viewers with its raw footage of life inside Pennhurst. The cameras captured images of residents left unattended, children in restraints, and living conditions that many likened to a prison rather than a care facility.
These are some of the sights and sounds of Pennhurst, the state institution for the mentally retarded. It's located in Spring City, Chester County. In 1908, when the institution first opened, the man in charge bitterly complained to the state that the conditions were already overcrowded. He transferred many of the patients to Q1, a classroom building. Many of them are still there. In the 18th century, the mentally retarded were often ignored, punished, and exploited. Today, things are supposed to be different. Modern 20th century man is much more scientific and civilized. Today, we no longer punish the mentally retarded. We don't exploit them either. We have come a long, long way. Now we ship them 25 miles out of town to a state-operated institution and forget them while they decay from neglect.
The public outcry following the documentary was immediate and intense. Disability rights advocates who had long been critical of large-scale institutions like Pennhurst found their arguments bolstered by the visual evidence. Parents of residents, many of whom were aware or unaware of the full extent of the conditions, began to demand change. In 1974, these tensions culminated in a class action suit known as Halderman versus Pennhurst. The suit, filed on behalf of resident Terry Lee Halderman and others, alleged that the conditions at Pennhurst violated the residents' constitutional rights. This legal battle would stretch for over a decade, becoming a landmark case in disability rights law. As the lawsuit progressed, life at Pennhurst began to change. Increased scrutiny led to some improvements in the conditions, but overall the institution's reputation had been irreparably damaged. The population began to decline as the families sought alternative care arrangements and new admissions slowed. By the 1970s and early 1980s, these saw a broader societal shift, mostly away from large-scale institutionalization towards community-based care for individuals with disabilities. This philosophy, known as deinstitutionalization, gained momentum across the United States, putting additional pressure on places like Pennhurst. In 1977, Pennsylvania passed Act 256, which ended new admissions to Pennhurst and similar state schools. This legislation, combined with the ongoing legal battles, marked the beginning of the end for the institution. The last years of Pennhurst's operation were marked by a gradual winding down of services. Staff members worked to replace remaining residents in community homes or other care facilities. Many long-term employees found themselves facing an uncertain future as the institution that had been a constant in their lives for decades prepared to close its doors. Finally, in 1987, after many years of legal battles and declining enrollment, Pennhurst officially closed. The last resident left on November 3rd, 1987, marking the end of this era in the care of individuals with disabilities. Following its closure, the vast Pennhurst campus fell into a state of abandonment and disrepair. The once bustling corridors fell silent, and nature began to reclaim parts of the property. The imposing buildings, designed to last for generations, now stood as silent sentinels to a bygone era. In the years following its closure, Pennhurst became a target for vandalism and urban exploration. The decaying buildings, with their peeling paint and rusting equipment, created an eerie atmosphere that attracted curiosity seekers and thrill seekers alike. Various proposals for site's redevelopment have been put forward over the years. In 2013, a portion of the property was sold to a private developer with plans to convert some of the buildings into senior living communities. However, progress has been slow, and much of the campus still remains in a state of disrepair. Efforts to preserve the history of Pennhurst have also emerged. The Pennhurst Memorial and Preservation Alliance was formed to advocate for the responsible redevelopment of the site and to ensure that the stories of those who lived and worked there are not forgotten. Today, parts of Pennhurst are open for historical tours, allowing visitors to walk the grounds and learn about the institution's complex legacy. These tours often focus on both the architectural significance of the campus and the human stories that unfolded within its walls. The abandoned buildings of Pennhurst have also become a popular location for paranormal investigations. The site's history and atmosphere have led to many that believe that it harbors supernatural activity, adding still another layer to its already complex history. Okay, there you go. That is a little bit of the history on one of the most darkest periods in our Western civilized society. There is really a lot of pain and sorrow and torture, both emotional and physical, probably happened. This place should prove to be quite interesting. Don't forget to like, subscribe, write a comment down below about this channel, what you like to see, and I'll get it in there. And on to the next. So, I'll see you soon.